Welcome. Basically, what we want to do today is set out a very significant initiative for the Labour Party in legislative terms, which will fundamentally affect the government of the country and the way institutions of state operate, with a view to making them more open and transparent, giving people greater access to information that affects them, information about how government operates and who influences it, so that we can preserve the greatest possible openness in the work of government, and at the same time ensure that there are no untoward influences in decision making either at local or national level. Later this year, because this is phase one as I've said, we will continue this programme. Among the matters which we are now working on to provide detailed new pieces of legislation are a full-scale reform of the ethics legislation, bearing in mind some of the things that have happened since and some of the information that's available to the tribunals. A whistleblowers bill, we have already published a draft of that, but we want to amend that and re-present it to the Dáil. A major reform of the official secrets legislation. Further electoral law designed basically to reform the electoral spend, because I think we all are agreed that the proposals that were brought in by ourselves last time are confined only to the duration of a general election, and people have managed to overcome that with huge spends outside that governed period. We will also be introducing a new Garda Authority Bill to bring about more democratic oversight of an Garda Síochána, and a new Judicial Standards Bill which will deal with the monitoring of standards of the judiciary. All of these will be published, as I say, later in the year.
I think the net political point here is that if we had this kind of legislation in Ireland, we wouldn't in fact need the number of tribunals that we have had today, nor indeed the extent of the tribunals, because much of the matters which have given rise to the tribunals arose from lobbying accompanied by, in many cases, tons of money, which was not publicly disclosed, and which subsequently has to be, if you like, excavated by long and expensive tribunals. So what we're saying is that when Labour was last in government in 92-97 period, we looked then for a package of proposals which would basically open up a light on our democracy. Some of those proposals at the time were very difficult for I would say, both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to accept. You know, it was seen as gross, in ways, intrusion into the affairs of departments of state, to have the public, and particularly yourselves in the media, sticking their nose too closely into the affairs of government departments. But in fact, in a modern economy, you need a degree of openness and transparency so that people can simply know what's going on, what projects cost, what's been successful and what's not been successful. So in proposing this package of measures, as Brendan has said, it's really about our approach to a more open form of government and a more open democracy in this country.
Thank you, Brendan. The bill that I'll be talking about this afternoon is the Electoral Commission Bill, and it comes under a theme that the Labour Party are presenting here today, which is called Broadening Our Democracy. The Electoral Commission Bill intends to set up what's called an Electoral and Public Commissions Office, which will pull under the umbrella of 4 existing structures that are present. The 4 existing structures being the Standards and Public Office Commission, the Referendum and Constituency Commission, the functions carried out by local authorities in relation to maintaining the franchise and other aspects of dual elections, and fourthly, functions which presently exist within the Department of the Environment and which they have responsibility for. There are 2 major ideas behind the rationale of this bill. One is the structure of how elections are actually operated, and the second is the system in which elections actually are carried out and the administration of such. We are all aware of the administrational systems which currently exist with the Register of Elector, where there are approximately 120,000 people in the country on the Register of Electors, in excess of those that are actually registered by the CSO offices through the census. This is the equivalent of a 4-seater constituency that's actually out there in the wilderness and obviously needs to actually be rectified. The system itself that we're proposing is that we move in with regard to the Register of Electors, is that we actually now move away from the household system which presently exists and move towards a PPS-based system where individual registration is now actually becoming a requirement.